Brian Wilson has the greatest quote about mastery I've ever heard. He said, "Beware the lollipop of mediocrity. Lick it once and you'll suck forever."
Welcome to the Beyond Speaking podcast from Premier Speakers Bureau, featuring in-depth conversations with the world's most in-demand keynote speakers.
Hi, I'm Brian Lord. This is the Beyond Speaking podcast. Our guest today is Mike Rayburn, who is extremely accomplished. So he is a two-time TED speaker. He has been on a featured artist on Sirius XM, a speaker, Hall of Famer. He has headlined the Las Vegas Strip. He has gotten 8 standing ovations at Carnegie Hall.
Yes.
And he can still dunk a basketball, which is the most impressive. I don't know.
And that's the one that we're not going to have proof on.
That's the one right. So Karen wrote that in. Karen's his manager. We'll have to talk to her about making sure we have an updated bio, if he can still dunk a basketball or not. He's a tall guy. Anyway, so Mike, thank you so much for coming on and being part of the Beyond Speaking podcast.
Brian, thank you. We've been working together a long time, and I appreciate this chance.
I know. Well, I'm glad to have you on. You're actually, I don't know if you remember this, one of our very first interviews, and a new artist named Taylor Swift was out.
Oh yeah, she's done pretty well, hasn't she?
I think so. She's from here.
Yep.
And we've seen her on football games. I don't know if she does other stuff, but I've seen her watching Chiefs games.
Yeah, that's what it is. Maybe she's a cheerleader or something.
Something like that. But that was your thing, is that she had this new song out that was popular. I think it was "You Belong to Me" or whatever it was.
"You Belong with Me," and I had just parodied it. Parodied to say. And that's the biggest. For what it's worth, it's got the most views of anything that I have online.
Really,
it's
awesome.
My parody, my Taylor Swift parody.
There you go, awesome, cool. Well, in addition to Taylor Swift parodies, I know you've done some other things as well. So some of the things we're going to talk about are innovation, the work it takes to be excellent at things, a virtuoso.
Right.
As you're going out and speaking right now, I know you just spoke to a financial company this morning.
Yep.
When you're going out, what is sort of the number one most important thing that people are asking you to talk about right now? Interesting.
That's a great question, because in the past, it's been change. They usually bring me in because they say, we're trying to manage change. And my whole philosophy is something that Peter Drucker said, where managing change is not only stupid, it's dangerous. The only way to manage change is to create change, right? It's a different mindset, which is the what-if mindset that I teach.
Yeah.
That was it for the past 12, 15 years, until the last year or so. And that's what they'll tell me, is they're trying to attract and retain qualified talent. Hiring is a challenge.
Yeah.
We're in that very unusual place. We could talk about it politically, but we're in an unusual place where there are a lot of jobs and there's a lot of people out of work, and it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So they're having to look for new ways, innovative ways to attract and retain talent.
So how does that? So I guess the next question would be, if somebody is a guitar virtuoso and a speaker Hall of Famer, how does that person line up with attracting talent?
With attracting talent, there's the bridge there, the connection, will be the phrase "what if." The thing that I feel like I bring to the table, with a background as an artist, rather than someone perceived, as a corporate world, is an outside perspective, a creative perspective. Because one of the things I make the point is that when companies want to learn how to attract talent, how to innovate, how to perform at peak levels, they usually go to business leaders or business speakers or sometimes sports figures, because you've booked all of them. Rarely do they go to artists. But for artists, being creative under pressure, performing well under pressure, that's our lifeblood. So I bring artistic sensibilities, artistic tools to the table that I teach in a non-artistic atmosphere. It's artistic, of course. I'm going to be creative. So what happens is that tool, the tool that I teach most often, is asking the question, what if?
Yeah.
So it applies, you can look at it kind of like a scope. You can point it at whatever you need to. So asking the question, what if, coming up with new possibilities within whatever context, you can point that lens at a new process for accounting. You could point that lens at, how do we become creative in attracting talent? What do we need to do that we haven't done in the past to retain talent? How do we keep our finger on that pulse? And so the tools I offer are essentially deliver on that promise. And then I illustrate with the guitar. So that's just my testimony.
Yeah. Can we get you to illustrate it at some point? Because that's kind of what that's what the people came here for. So
don't listen to him talk. Just play. What's the Frank Zappa album? Shut up and play your guitar.
That's what you should do. Well, you're kind of selling it because you got the cool hat. This is nothing. So this is something I could never ever wear. I could never wear the cool hat. I could never wear the jacket with the chain and everything else.
Well, here's what I learned. If you do it, you got to own it. You got to step into it and do it like you meant to do it. Like this is why I'm here. Trust me on this, because I didn't. There were times where I'd shy away. Like, am I going to be that guy? Yes, I am.
You should be that guy. You got to be able to pull it off. So when it comes to being creative, like not forced creativity, but like creativity under pressure.
Yes.
How do you get to that point?
How do you get to that point? Interestingly, I am writing a book right now. The working title, don't hold me to this, but the working title is Not Creative, My Ass. Creativity Tips for Left-Brained Linear Thinking Non-Creatives, parentheses, and everyone else. And so there are tips that people can use to get creative. So first of all, anytime, ironically, people who don't consider themselves creative, like most of my clients, those are the people who bring me in. Financial advisors, CPAs, engineers, logistics, supply chain, traditionally non-creative careers. I believe they are creative, but that's just the perception. So ironically, people who don't perceive themselves as creative need a formula to be creative, which sounds kind of counterintuitive. So I give them one. Asking the question, what if? And we walk through the different ways that people can apply it. I illustrate with the ways I've applied it, and then I give some stories of past clients who have applied it and gotten major cool results.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the other things you're really well known for in this is also being a virtuoso. So you have people like, hey, we've got these top performers. We need them to take it to the next level.
Right.
We need peak performance. What do you bring to the table when it comes to that?
Thank you for asking, because that's actually where I'm going. I've been delivering my What If keynote for 20 years, and it's honed and it's changed and it's evolved and all that, but it's still based on that. It's based around creativity and innovation. Now my new keynote is called Perform Like a Virtuoso. And now keep in mind, there's not everybody calls you saying, we need somebody to speak on virtuosos. Okay, They don't say that. However, it's about mastery. If you want to be in the president's circle or the top performers, then there's certain tools that people who get there practice that others don't. I know what they are because trial and error, and I stumbled onto them, and it took one heck of a long time. So I don't pretend to be like, I wasn't born like, hey, here's how to be excellent. It was a lot of work. I have a degree in classical guitar. I've been playing the guitar for so many years, 5 decades. And so within that context, I've learned what it takes to become the top of your field. And I don't mean that to sound proud about myself so much as I understand it. I get it. I get what it takes. Things like consistency. People don't realize, it's not what you do. Nike says, just do it. They're partially right. It's actually just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really what it's about. One of the things I'll tell people is that being world class is actually boring. Yeah. Mostly boring because it's repetitive. Repetition is the mother of skill. So, like, I'll play a little piece. For instance, in the last 24 hours, one of the big pieces I perform is I try to do things people haven't done. So it's a guitar version of Bohemian Rhapsody, which you know about, you've heard. Yeah. You were one of the first people to hear it.
Yeah, we were like, and just imagine this part when it's there, and then here's the rest. Like, you were still working through it, which is amazing to hear.
Yeah, you guys heard when I was working on it, and then you heard it with John Oates at Robin Crow's Dark Horse recording.
Yeah,
it came out there. Anyway, so. I have practiced that piece just in the last, and I've been working on it for over 10 years. I've practiced that piece at least 7 times in the last 24 hours because I performed it 2.5 hours ago. Yeah. And so it's repetitive. It's like, do I want to? And when I'm at the hotel and I'm tired, it's 11:30 at night and I want to get up. I have to get up for the program. Do I want to stay up and practice Bohemian Rhapsody another 3 times? probably not my first choice. However, and it's boring. I know the piece. However, you keep looking. This is one of those principles: is that world class is and top 1% performance is always a study of greater and greater attention to detail. Mm-hmm. It's always a study of delegation and focus. And so some of those principles people haven't heard. And again, I don't know of anybody who calls you guys saying you want somebody to talk about virtuoso or peak performance, maybe that. However, if they do want to lead in their industry, if they do want to be a top performer, if they do want the greater, I just say it's your greater influence, impact, and income come from being a master. One of the points, I'll finish with this, but the points I make is the opposite of being a virtuoso, meaning mastery, right? The opposite of virtuoso isn't failure. The opposite of virtuoso is competent. There's plenty of competent people. That's the price of admission. There are precious few virtuosos, but the greatest impact, influence, and income you're going to have is on that path from competent, getting by, good enough, acceptable, to virtuoso, personal best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is fascinating, those different things. I'm curious to know, so you talk about this, aside from the practice of working on Bohemian Rhapsody and practicing it, even though you know it, what are some of your daily habits that you do in general that help keep you, because you have to be this performer, you have to be the speaker, you have to research, you have to do all these other things. What are those daily practices that you do? Great
freaking question. Gosh, I love that. Because, and the reason I say that is this, people don't realize it, your life is your practices. That's how you spend your day. And so even if, I get some people, we have an individualized coaching program called the Virtuoso Underground. Mm-hmm. Virtuoso because it's about mastery. Underground is because the people who become masters are a little different. They're counterculture. They are willing to do things others won't. So one of the things that we talk about is that even if you're not clear on exactly the outcome you want, if you accurately choose the right practices, you'll end up achieving the outcome that you would have wanted, or one that's very good. Mm-hmm. So I counsel people to find, generally, we don't have a lot more time in a day for more than 3 practices. Mm-hmm. So the 3 practices I do, other than a morning routine, that I'm kind of taking that's something, I have a morning prayer and meditation and reading and that kind of thing. Other than that, number 1, I'm writing every day. I have to write. I have no choice but to write.
Is this music or a book or whatever it is?
I'm referring to more words, and it can be comedy, could be content, meaning tools that I teach. Or the new keynote. I'm working on that more than anything. Yeah. Also writing my book. Yeah. So I'll say it's going to end up with probably 55 chapters, and so right now I'm at a chapter a day. Yeah. And it's more than half done. Yeah. So writing is number 1. Number 2 for me needs to be practicing. I need to be on the guitar, working on that. And one of the points I haven't heard anybody teach that I want to introduce here is to have, we all know that not every day is the same, and there's things that come up. So have a floor and a ceiling. A floor means, at the very least, if I don't get to pick up the guitar at all, I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to play for 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And there's nobody who becomes a virtuoso by playing 15 minutes a day. However, the way you become a virtuoso is to not let a day go by that you don't do at least 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then when you have the time, you're doing 3 and 4 hours or 2.5. So number 1 is writing. Number 2 is practicing the guitar. And number 3 is some kind of marketing or outreach. On this sales side, I'm not so much, that's more you guys. That's what you guys do well. Sure. However, you need the tools, you need the website, you need the video, you need the materials and if I have, for instance, you guys booked me for something and they contact me 3 months later and they say, we want you to do this other event. I'll reach out to you guys. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Are those practices?
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's one of those things, just keeping up, and I love the minimum thing, because I do the same thing with working out. I have to have at least a minimum of this, but usually it's this. And that's kind of what you have to do. And the same thing, whether it's marketing or anything else, is having those things. So people, if you're at home watching, listening, whatever it may be, figure out what your baseline is and your great line is and kind of go to there.
Yes, baseline and great line. Yeah. That's a great way to say it.
Yeah, I made it up. Anyway, I'm sure maybe I saw you have that somewhere. Anyway, but yeah, so from that standpoint, going out with that. Like when you see the big challenges before you. So the other thing too is just these are huge mountains. To be a virtuoso, you kind of have to climb these big mountains because you said so many years to do Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh.
And so how do you pick your big goals when you're going up to a big goal?
That's a great question. It's a combination of things. First of all, one of the things I talk about is clarity that starts with purpose. And when we teach this, we have something I call the purpose pie. And it has everything that goes into choosing what your purpose is. And basically, for me, it comes down to, and I say this for anybody, if you're going, oh, I don't know my purpose in life. What is it that you just want to shake the world to get them to know?
Yeah.
Your purpose is going to be somehow connected to that. Mm-hmm. For me, other than my faith, what I want to, I mean, everything I do boils down to, I want to shake the world and get them to know you are capable of so much more than you realize. You just needed the right mindset and a few tools. Mm-hmm. You are capable of way more. And that's, I believe that, I live that. That's why I do everything.
Yeah.
Just ask the question again. Refresh me the question.
So, how do you pick your big next goal?
Oh, the big goals.
Yeah.
So, the reason I said purpose is that if it's a big goal, you really want it to be aligned, congruent with your purpose, with why you do what you do. So, I do it by stuff that interests me.
Yeah.
And so, right now, I performed with a hologram in 2014 at NSA at the national conference. I'm going to make 3D. It might not be true hologram because I've learned a lot about that. I'm creating a 3D keynote.
Wow. Awesome.
So it will have regular 3D.
Yeah.
As a part of it. It'll probably creep its way in. It won't be the opening part. It'll creep its way in and people won't be expecting it.
Yeah.
So the way I choose that is something that either interests me or I feel like is going to be, I have to somehow be excited about it.
Yeah.
Because there's just too much involved. I did the first ever cross-country concert tour on bicycle one time where I rode from San Diego to Brooklyn, 4,000 miles doing concerts along the way. No one had ever done it.
Wow.
And USA Today did a story on it and stuff. If I didn't like cycling or at least have an inkling that it might be fun, that would have sucked. However, it was good.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very cool.
And I also use the question, what if?
Yeah.
To think big. Like,
Yeah.
what if I could do a hologram? What if I could perform with, have Stevie Ray Vaughan appear next to me on stage and he and I play a little Pride and Joy,
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool. Well, speaking of which, so we're here in Music City. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got some music stories. I know you've got some stuff maybe with Beach Boys. So I loved it. I gotta. If you're here, I have to tap into that. So.
Sure.
So tell me some
name drop stories.
Yeah, name drop stories. Yeah.
I only have a few. No, I was blessed to open for the Beach Boys a number of times. And some of them at the Navy Pier in Chicago and some at the Peace Center in Greenville, South Carolina. And they liked what I did, so they actually invited me on stage to perform Barbara Ann.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they gave me an electric 12 string. So I was actually in the mix. They didn't just it was there. And so I got to perform with them. And then as I'm writing this new keynote, I was just kind of looking at the Beach Boys. And Brian Wilson has the greatest quote about mastery I've ever heard. He said, "Beware the lollipop of mediocrity. Lick it once and you'll suck forever."
That's awesome.
That's going to be probably the opening of my new keynote.
Oh, wow.
Because that's what it's about. Mediocrity is okay. I'm not putting it down. However, the greatest rewards are not there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Cool. Well, do you have any others, or the other thing? We got to make sure you play guitar somehow. So
I will play it.
So what do you have for us? If you want to set this up.
Okay. So guitar-wise.
Yeah.
There had to be, when I became a speaker, Janice Stanfield heard me just down the street from here at Zany's, and she heard me and she said, "Mike, you're clean, you're funny, you have a message. You're a speaker and you don't even know it." And I said, "What's a speaker?" I literally, and she explained, I said, "You mean like a motivational speaker?" And she said, "Yeah." I went, "No." But I've listened to her, I thought about it. So right away, I wanted to be sure that I was not an entertainer doing 59 and a half minutes of shtick and then saying, sometimes you just got to take a chance. And that's my message. And I wanted it to be, I wanted the entertainment elements, the guitar, the comedy, to all thread with the message so that they just made sense.
Yeah.
And honestly, to this day, that's my constant balance. So what I did was I got, right now I open by asking people to complete this phrase. If it ain't broke, they say don't fix it.
Yep.
And I say, here's the problem with that. Time breaks everything. If it's working, if it's cutting edge, or if it's been around for years, its replacement is on a drawing board right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the pace of AI. That's the pace of everything. And so I say the people who truly innovate, and I talk about the graveyard of obsolescence, all these products and services and companies that are gone, and it's all, they had one fatal flaw in common. They failed to innovate. So then I say, so the problem is so many people are in careers like financial services, teaching, any kind of leadership or whatever, where things have been the same. There's a certain modus operandi that they all go through. And I say, but so you don't think you can find any possibilities? Well, the guitar's been played the same way for literally hundreds of years. You strum or pick with one hand, you fret with the other. And it works. It works great. However, what if we could try something different? What if instead of playing between the saddle and the nut, we played up here? What if we could make the sound not by strumming and picking, but just touch the strings with one hand? Let that free your fingers up to do a lot of different parts. You have to change the way you think. This is where you're thinking like a piano player rather than a guitarist, which really what I'm about is trying to change people's mindset. That's what I have the greatest effect on. Yeah. So, and then what if you could use that to play faster than you can with a pick? So I write this piece around it, excuse me. Yeah. There. So. And I usually do this, you guys are seeing this raw. I usually do this with like effects and reverb and echo and chorusing and all that kind of stuff. And you're hearing it completely raw. This is acoustic. I'm not even plugged in, okay? So it shows that it's not electric. So you got the melody going with the right hand and the accompaniment there in the left hand. It's kind of cool vibe you can do with one hand, right? And then that. No, this is what Van Halen made famous, this type of playing. But what I wanted to do was see if we could add more fingers, like a bass line. So you get this going. So let's add a bass line. Then go back to the bottom, see how fast we can go.
Very cool. That is awesome.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. That's a lot better than my cheeseburger in paradise that I play for my kids. That's where I top out.
I'm a huge Buffett fan, so you're not gonna win that argument. I'm gonna say no, Buffett's better.
That's awesome.
Cheeseburger, yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing this, for sharing about being virtuoso, about what if, about some pretty cool stories, and just being here and being part of the Beyond Speaking podcast.
Well, I love working with you guys. I love the chance that you invited me to do this, so thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So for those of you who are watching or listening, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Go to premierspeakers.com and check out Mike Rayburn. So Mike, thanks again so much for coming on and being part of this.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Beyond Speaking podcast. To learn more about today's guest, visit premierspeakers.com. Make sure to subscribe and leave a review wherever you listen.